Hello everybody, Kemo Sabi here, coming at you with another video. This one's off of Vice webpage. A write-up by Jesse Winter, published April 30th, 2020 at 11:01 a.m. with the topic of Deadly overdoses are rocking Canada's poorest neighbourhood under lockdown. In the downtown Eastside, ground zero for Canada's opiate crisis, a new wave of fatal overdoses has Vancouver's top doctor worried. Residents of one of Canada's poorest neighbourhoods says they are seeing a new wave of fatal drug overdoses, and Vancouver's top doctor says social distancing measures to fight COVID-19 could be partially to blame. As pandemic concerns grew in March, service providers in the downtown Eastside community closed drop-in centers, banned guests in social housing, and scaled back access to some overdose prevention sites, all in the name of physical distancing to fight the virus. But in presentation to the City Council on Tuesday, Vancouver Coastal Health's top doctor Patricia Daly said many of those measures went beyond what public health orders required during the pandemic and likely put people at greater risk. Some of our overdose prevention services were reducing their hours or cutting back on the number of available booths because they believe that made it safer for those using their services, Dr. Daly said. In fact, by far the greatest crisis in the downtown East Side continues to be the opiate overdose crisis. We've had not a single death from COVID-19 and very few cases, she said. Since the virus hit Vancouver, there has already been one spike in suspected overdose death with around 30 deaths in March, the highest estimated death rate in a year, and 8 in the final week of March alone. Delay said this could be attributed in part to the service providers misunderstanding public health orders that restricted gatherings of more than 50 people and cutbacks to services that actually put more people at risk. I'm concerned that people are consuming their drugs in much riskier circumstances because of their fear of COVID-19, Delay said. At one of Canada's largest tent encampments in Oppenheimer Park, residents say another spike in fatal overdoses is underway. Early Monday morning, it killed Rhys Thayars. Days before his death, Thayars' best friend, Nakisha Carter, said he was busy responding to overdoses and trying to save people. Someone OD'd on the far side of the park, and Rhys went running, she said Monday, through tears. That was the last time I saw him. A two-spirited man originally from BC's Central Coast, Thayars was proud of his indigenous Wuk'uhnuk's ancestry and loved traditional jingle and fancy dancing, according to his sister Keely. He was such a medicine man, really focused on First Nations medicine and healing, Keely said. When you met him, he had this way of making everyone feel at home. Thayars was also a staunch advocate for other underhoused people living at the park and elsewhere. In August, when the city attempted to shut down the encampment at Oppenheimer Park, Thayars led protest marches against the camp's removal. Eventually, the various public agencies involved backed down, and the push to dismantle the encampment was stalled. In the months before he died, Thayars was sharing a room with Carter in social housing near the park. The pair had been friends for over a decade. People used to joke that he was my husband, Carter said. Whenever I'd see him, he'd scoop me up in his arms and swing me around 3 times. Thayars' death hit Carter particularly hard. She said her older sister died of an overdose about a week before Thayars. I'm worried about the same thing happening to my boyfriend, she said. I feel like I'm a sitting duck just waiting to find out who the next person to die is going to be. Camp organizer Chrissy Brett and Thayars' death is the first to be overdose related in the park, but amid the disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic, she worries there will be more. 2 weeks ago, Brett says she found a man dead in a nearby portable toilet from what she believes is an overdose. He was slumped over, and at first I thought he was sleeping, but he wouldn't wake up, and he was cold to the touch, she said. I didn't have my purse or my Narcan with me, so I ran to get help, but he didn't recover. The distancing measures that put higher numbers of people on the streets may also be increasing the risks from other dangers. Erica Grant and her son Duncan went missing in early April, but guest restrictions in his SRO building made it impossible for her to check on him. He was eventually found dead later in his room with fentanyl in his system, Grant said. There were multiple sticky notes on his door asking him to call his mother, but for days no one had been actually to check on him, she said. He never used to disappear like that. He hated being in his building alone, Grant said. I couldn't go check on him because I wasn't allowed in his building. Daly worries that April will see a spike in overdoses deaths similar to March. While Vancouver has seen the rate of overdose deaths fall over the past year, Daly explained that it's not because there are fewer overdoses, it's because more people are surviving them, thanks to interventions like naloxone and access to overdose prevention sites. But since the start of the pandemic, visits to overdose prevention sites have fallen from an average of 6,000 per week to around 2,000 per week. While the province has been releasing near daily updates to the number of deaths from the COVID-19, it's impossible to know how many overdose deaths there have been during the pandemic because public agencies can't agree on whose job it is to release those numbers. Vice asked the police to provide the data behind Daly's presentation, but Vancouver Police Department spokesperson Sergeant Aaron Riod said the police don't track medical information like that. The Vancouver Police Department are unaware of where Dr. Patricia Daly obtained her numbers, Sergeant Riod said. The BC's coroner's office said the most recent figures it has available stop in January. The coroner's office also said it would never speculate on the cause of death or suspected cause, as the coroner's investigation would have to be completed to determine the cause. Meanwhile, the city and the province has started dismantling the encampments at Oppenheimer Park and at 2 other tent cities in Victoria, BC. The province says it has secured hundreds of empty hotels rooms and other spaces to house homeless people during the pandemic because of fears about how fast the virus could spread as it reaches one of the encampments. The province has said no one will be forced to take a hotel room, but a public safety order issued last weekend gives police power to arrest anyone who refuses to leave the camps. On Saturday, City of Vancouver workers had already fenced off sections of Oppenheimer Park they had cleared, but Brett and several other activists worry that, like the social distancing restrictions, the move to close down the encampments might be a dangerous overreach. Absolutely, they're taking advantage of COVID-19 to shut this place down, she said. So, hopefully you enjoy the write-up, everybody. It'd be great if you subscribed. Awesome if you share and like the video. And we'll see you in the next one. Definitely a little bit scary that the police now have the power to arrest anyone not wanting to leave this camp, which obviously they had up for a while, and it sounded like the kid here earlier in this read-up that died recently was one of the main reasons why this camp wasn't taken down, because he was able to do some protests and stuff. And of course, inadvertently, he now is dead from an overdose. But this correlates back to my video just last week about the Eastside needing dire help and needing humanitarian aid. And information from Vice saying that they've shut down some booths and they've cut back hours and they've done all this stuff. It's not helping the people. This is calling them. And I don't know about you, but if I was a homeless street person or whatever else, I don't know if I'd feel fully comfortable going into a motel room, especially when you're going to be, escorted by who knows who and all these other imposed rules because now they're in a residential building. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem the way to go about helping this situation. Like, they got to be out there giving people food, they got to be out there doing stuff, doing whatever, but I guess this is a step in the right direction is all I can hope for. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.